So, welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success story series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes, their challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And this morning, I'm delighted to have with us James Kear, who's the managing director at Feel Good Financial. So, firstly, James, thank you for coming on board. Thank you for spending a bit of time with us. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, Feel Good Financial, what you do, how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, firstly, for having us, Chris.
Very welcome.
Really appreciate it. It's unusual doing this because when you're in sales, I always tell my guys to let the customer do all the talking and they can pick up the triggers and everything off the customer. So
Bang on.
we're sat on this side of it. So it'll be nice to hopefully tell people a little bit about what we do and where we can help.
Brilliant.
So as you mentioned, Chris, managing director of Feel Good Financial. Now, that is, we've got a number of arms within the business and within the group. So we are part of the Preston Baker Group, where we've got within the group, we've got estate agents, we've got architects, town planners, a holiday lettings business, a fancy new CRM system that goes out to estate agents. So there's 16 businesses altogether. Feel Good
Wow.
Financial and Feel Good Commercial are the two businesses that are mine with Ian and James,
Yep.
Ian Preston and James Baker.
Yep.
And we fit really nicely within that group because we set up, I suppose, initially all those years ago to support the customers of the estate agency being able to buy houses and sell houses. So we
Yep.
were offering mortgages, we were offering protection, to personal protection and business protection to help those customers finance those purchases to allow them to do it. And then we've just sort of grown from there. So that's when we sort of rebranded as Feel Good Financial from Preston Baker Financial Services,
Yep.
which was a strategic decision and fit along with our goals, really, Chris, of trying to make people feel good financially and also physically, mentally, and working with them on a more
Yeah.
holistic basis than just on that side. So it's allowed us now to get some more introduced on board, working with different estate agents. Primarily, we are still an estate agency mortgage and protection broker, but it's allowed us to get some more on board. It's
Yep.
also allowed us to work really well now in the employee membership business space, and some other sort of quirky things as well. So we've got Feel Good Financial Health, for example, where we work actively with different gyms and personal trainers in the local area within Yorkshire, and we have a relationship with them where we offer services that go alongside their services.
Yep.
In terms of they can do the physical stuff, we can do the financial stuff and look after their members and their customers, I suppose. So it's about making sure everyone comes out of it better off, really. But yeah, we've been around 12 years now in some form. And yeah, we're still growing the business. We've got
Wonderful.
a good number of advisors who work with us, both mortgage
Yep.
protection and commercial brokers throughout the business. It's all about culture. We love to give people opportunities, and people can come in from any background, and we'll try and make sure that we provide a pathway for them as their long-term destination.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I didn't realise you were part of Preston Baker Group. I met Ian and James, goodness, a long time ago.
Yeah.
It first, it would probably be a best part of 18 years ago, I would imagine. I don't know quite. I don't know where they were in their journey, but it's great to have
Yeah.
followed the group and to see how it's expanded and developed to help the clients in so many different ways. So that's absolutely wonderful. But if we focus on you a little bit, James, to start with if you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into business, and why this particular one for you.
Yeah, so I am a Yorkshire lad through and through. Both sides of the family are from different sides of Yorkshire, one from Castleford, one from Leeds, which caused a
Brilliant.
bit of controversy in the rugby league environment.
Yes,
Because my background is I've got a family who's played professional sports, and my one granddad played for Castleford, my grandma's brother on the other side played for Leeds. So
brilliant.
it's always a good talking point when we get together in families. But yeah, very much, you know, a Yorkshire family come through. My dad's a professional rugby coach, or was, so he just actually clocked up his 700th game coaching Batley
Wow,
Bulldogs the other day. So he's coached a number of different teams over that. So I've grown up within that background. So people might say, why don't you go into sport? And everyone said, if you've not got the opportunity to be a professional rugby league player, and I wasn't good enough. I did have a few trials when I was growing up, but I was
brilliant.
massively into sport, and a lot of what you'll probably hear today, Chris, are things I've learned from a sporting background and different,
Yes.
because I think it teaches so much around teamwork,
Yep.
around communication, everything like that. But yeah, I suppose I then saw an opportunity actually when my dad was he was at Hull FC at the time, and I think I must have been in sixth form, deciding, what you want to do. Now, I think it's too young to actually know what you really want to do when you're in sixth form, really.
Yep.
You're only a kid, aren't you? Of
Yes.
16 to 18.
Yes.
And I know you said about your kids, Chris, as well. You'll have gone through this with them, but it was, and you kind of thinking, well, what do I do? And
Yeah.
I wasn't at that time thinking about going to, study, go to do the academic side or university. So I thought, well, I love people. I was working in hospitality at the time in a local hotel, and I really loved like sort of hosting those weddings. I was, really confident with people, and again, I learned some great life skills from doing that. I would urge plenty of people to go and work in hospitality as a youngster
Yep.
to sort of start some of that. But then I sort of thought, well, what can I do? And because I love people, I thought, well, how can I take a client from or a customer from the beginning and build up a really strong relationship and keep working with them long term? So that's where sort of financial advice kind of came into it. The other thought process was I played golf with someone who was a financial advisor and they just seemed to do all the business on the golf course. Uh,
Yep.
so I thought, oh, maybe this is an opportunity to tie them both together. I'll just play golf and, make a bit of money from seeing clients on the side. So yeah, so I sort of then, when I left school, went straight into do my exams in terms of mortgage protection advice, financial services. So I got qualified as a trainee financial advisor at that point.
Yep.
Now, interestingly, Chris, that point was 2006.
Yes.
So not a great time
No.
for financial services. We're just coming into the crash.
Yep.
So I sort of then pivoted away from finance. I got my qualifications and I pivoted away. It was really tough, to be honest, and that's probably molded me as well in terms of some
Yes.
resilience elements. But it was tough as a trainee to make your way when you didn't have the client base and you didn't have the life skills, to be honest with you. I mean, I do
Yeah.
things so much different now than what I did back then because I've got the experience. So I then went to university after that and played rugby at university, got a sports science degree,
Brilliant.
um, which I loved. It was basically having a full-time rugby league player because you trained 5 times a week and you played on a weekend. And it took some great experiences from that.
Brilliant.
Got to play. We played our home matches at Headingley, so it was
Oh,
fantastic
wow.
time for Leeds Met, yeah, at the time. And
Yes.
then yeah, after that, I suppose then again you're back in that zone again. What do I do? So I then set up my first business then back in then, which was a company called Play Touch, which was about touch rugby league and
Yep.
trying to operate that within just when it started really, because it'll have been 2010ish, so it wasn't big back then. And I was looking for five-a-side footballs with Power League and things like that were
Yep.
becoming really popular goals. So I had a sales manager role at Power League, and we set up two new centres within Leeds. And then I also started this business alongside. Again, taught me some great lessons about what not to do, probably.
Yep.
But it gave me some good skills along the way, and running a different little business to do that. And then I always thought I'd end up back in financial services, and my goal, I suppose, when I grew up as a kid was when I saw my dad coaching these professional players, I thought they're young lads, they don't know what to do with their money,
Yes.
need some support. I actually wanted to go into it to support professional rugby league players
Yes.
because in football, PFA and people were doing, a good job in terms of
Yep.
educating footballers and making sure their money was spent well. Rugby league, they weren't. And I heard so many horror stories from the professional side of it where players were earning really good money, but they didn't have any money left at the end of the month and especially the end of their careers. So the
Yes.
goal was actually to start supporting them. And then you're probably going to ask, how did I end up in estate agency financial services? And I'm not really sure how it happened, but it happened from a chance meeting of getting back into the industry one day like that. And then, yeah, ever since we've been working within that kind of estate agency financial services.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And I mean, looking back since you founded the business, what are some of the biggest challenges and issues you've had to overcome, James?
Yeah, so I suppose in terms of the business challenge, I like to see things more as an opportunity, Chris, rather than a
Great.
challenge. Because challenges do provide that, don't they?
They
So
do.
there was obviously the COVID, the COVID element of challenge and doing what we're doing today, Chris, where we're sat on a Zoom call. And back in the day, everything was face to face. We
Yeah.
didn't see a customer or sign a customer up without
Yes.
doing it. So I really had to, I suppose, change one, how I coached team members, but two, also in terms of the actual advice process, changing it to make sure that we had the digital tools in place. We had the right presentations to offer the same service for a customer digitally as we could face to face.
Yeah.
And some people do struggle with that because ultimately some people sell better face to face. or
Yes.
build a better rapport face to face than they do digitally. So that was a big challenge. Back in probably 2022, more recently, we changed our staff base from a employed model to a self-employed model.
Cool. Yeah.
So it was one, hopefully to give them a bigger slice of the pie as well. So they could, get a fairer reflection of what they're bringing into the business. So
Yeah.
it's hopefully a win-win environment. I always try to create win-wins wherever I'm involved. So that was a win for the brokers, but also hopefully a win for us as well in some of the things that we were doing. And because we were getting leads from numerous sources, it made sense to have kind of contracts and things like that. And that took a big sort of step change for the guys. And they went through that change cycle, looking at, you know, being able to get there and not having their earnings as sort of set as they were before.
Yes.
But
Yes.
so that was
Yeah.
probably one of the biggest challenges, which we had to navigate through. Now, the great news is we managed to keep everyone through that process. So we didn't lose any staff members at
Right.
that time when we did it, which is really unusual for when you make a big change like that. And I think hopefully the support we've given them is now we've got people earning 4 or 5 times what they were earning previously, and also we've hopefully facilitated them building their business within our business
Yep.
as
Brilliant.
well. So yeah,
Brilliant.
probably those.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I've worked with a few financial services businesses over time, and one thing I did find with this difference between employed and self-employed was that it still requires, even though self-employed, there's an expectation that people are going to be self-motivated
Yeah,
because the opportunity is there. What we often found was the management was still required
yeah,
to keep. Does that make sense? Is that an
absolutely.
unmanaged self-employed person ended up often only earning pretty much what they're earning when they're employed?
Yeah, I think we try and brand it when we do, recruitment meetings or new starters as best of both worlds, really,
Yes.
because we want to give them the support of an employed member of staff, but
Right.
actually offer them the earnings potential to thrive in a self-employed environment. You're totally right, Chris. What we did find, and it took a bit of getting used to probably from myself and Ian and James's point of view, is people who did go that way, initially might go, oh, actually, I can earn the same money by doing less work.
Yes.
So you do get lifestyle brokers or lifestyle members of staff,
Yeah.
which is that we're totally happy with that as well. Like if people want to do it and have a great life around it, that's fine. But yeah, then you have to pivot sort of how you're, making
Yeah.
sure that you're managing those opportunities or supporting them rather than the management, I suppose, element.
It was a really interesting thing to see that happen. It's
Yeah.
say not necessarily everybody, but just then introducing a level of management and accountability and sort of minimum performance, because obviously it does cost you,
Yeah.
to support something like that. And
And people enjoy it, Chris, to be honest. People do enjoy, the opportunity. I give them all a half an hour slot on a Monday
brilliant,
where it's their time, half an hour each week, where
brilliant.
they can call and we have a phone call or a Zoom call, and it's about what do they need supporting with, how do we do that? So it's not the old school, one-to-ones where you go through a form,
Yeah,
anything like that. It's more the support mechanisms and what do they need to make sure they thrive. But that really helps keep those staff members or brokers on track who cut on track for us
yeah,
because they feel supported and they feel
yeah,
wanted as well and part of something bigger, which is
yeah.
super important.
I think that's really key. I really do. As I say, I have worked with quite a few, and I remember. Oh goodness, I can't remember how long ago it was, but the key sort of compliance rules of running financial services
Yeah.
business changed. I'm guessing about 15 years ago, and that was going to have a big issue with
Yeah.
individual businesses and giving. I know one or two of the businesses I work with, giving a sense of community to people was really quite important at that point. Giving them a somewhere to come and be part of, I think was really really key. So, whether it's from the challenges you faced and overcome, James, or the successes that you've had, what would you say are some of the biggest learnings you've had about growing a business in general?
Yeah, I think there's so one thing I asked my wife this actually, Chris, what she thought, and she said one of the best skills I have is she called it being a facilitator.
Yep,
So in essence, I always try to look for a reason to make something work, to do it, rather than a reason to why we shouldn't do it
yep,
or shouldn't explore an opportunity. And
yep,
that's probably been one of the things I've learned that actually you've got to have diversification, you've got to have a bit of variation. Not everything you try will work. And some of your biggest learnings are from things that don't work in essence. So
yep,
if it feels right and you feel there's an opportunity there, I think explore it.
Yeah.
And don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
Yeah.
Is really important as well. Probably one of the other biggest things in terms of running a business to me, Chris, has been sort of learning to trust other people and that being able to delegate, because
Yeah.
that's really important that you let other people be
Yeah.
successful. I've got a lot of people who work in and around the environment and the group who have got a greater skill set in many areas than I have.
Yeah.
So rather than, micromanaging them, for example, we've got a girl who does our social media. We've got different people who are skilled in those marketing elements. Well, there's no point me looking at that myself because ultimately they can do a better job. So actually let them thrive and let them do the bits that they're better than me on. So, but that learning to trust us, it's tough when it's, your
Yes.
name, as they say, over the door, and
Yeah.
it's your money as well.
Yeah, letting go is such a big challenge because and it's really interesting actually because I often talk to people about the sort of any business that grows at about the same level every percentage every year is on an exponential growth curve, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And I always say the first few years of sort of establishment and survival are work blinking hard. It's all about how hard we work. Every decision could be the last if we get it wrong. Money's tight, and we have to be careful of money. Um, but the challenge is as we get onto that sort of growth curve, that knee point in growth, that that mindset, although it was absolutely vital to get us to there, won't get us to the next stage. If that
yeah,
makes sense, because
definitely.
we start to hold the business back. If we focus on right to grow further, how hard do I work? It doesn't get us there. It's about how hard I can help other people work, how I can actually manage great people, often better than me. In fact, recruiting people better than me in their particular discipline is absolutely the right thing to do, but can be a challenge. So I
Absolutely, yeah. And it's hard, isn't it, to let go because you always want to see yourself as. I still look back now and think, oh, I was the best advisor going, I was the best mortgage broker, the best at selling protection. But actually, there's plenty of advisors who are far better at it than me. Their skill set is
yeah,
far more enhanced. They use the tools much better.
yes,
And ultimately, I want to give them the opportunity to thrive in that. And as you said, it's the hardest worker in the room does win usually at the beginning, don't they?
yes,
Um,
100%. And
but
that gets you to a certain stage, and that's absolutely why typically hardworking people get that level of success. But if they continue just focusing on how hard they work, typically the business will at best plateau and at worst start to decline because obviously you can only give so much. Um,
Well, I remember Jamie Peacock, Chris, saying the rugby league player or
yes,
ex-England captain. He said he always used to train on Christmas Day because that was the only day when he could get one up on everyone else because they weren't training and he was. So that meant that actually it was giving him the opportunity to get a little bit ahead of his competitors. But if the team's not right around him, they're still not going to succeed, are they?
100%. No, exactly. I think Tyson always used to say he'd get up at 4 to go for a run because he knew his opponent wasn't getting up at 4, and if he was getting up at 4, then Tyson would get up at 3. And it was literally like, I'm going to out train you at least on that basis. Yeah, it's interesting, and I guess the analogy is correct with coaching is that the coach isn't there to be better than his players. His coach is there to help his players be the best they can be on a pitch. And speaking of coaches, who are the best coaches you've worked with, whether that's business, sport, or life in general? Who's had the biggest impact on you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure my dad would like me to say him since though he's, coached England, Wales, rugby league, but
I think we
actually I'm
should.
not, I'm
Yeah.
not going to say him. No, he's taught me some really good lessons to be fair as I grew up. But actually I think there's probably two that have stood out to me. There's so many to mention, isn't there, when you look back? Is what I always try and do because I try and take one little thing from each coach or each
Yes.
mentor, and
Yep.
whether it's even today, there'll be something that crops up that you say that, but oh, well, do you know what? That's really interesting. Let's take that as a point and then use it. So there's been absolute numerous throughout my career and throughout my life, but I think one was a guy called Paul Fletcher who coached us at Leeds Met rugby league team.
Yep.
So he's a good local lad. He used to own the Sky Rack as well, pub in Headingley. So he
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
put on some good nights for us as well, shall we say, when we were at
Yep.
university.
I've had a few good nights there.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember him saying to me once, because I was never the biggest when I was a rugby player.
Yep.
My communication skills were really good.
Yep.
And he said to me, he said, you don't have to be the best tackler in the team to be our best defender. And what he meant was I
Yeah.
could stand at fullback because I played fullback and I could dictate people where to go, send them right, send them left, make sure that actually I didn't have to make a tackle because they'd make them all for me. And I think that was just that lesson from him sort of taught me a lot of things about
Yes.
in terms of coaching then through the future that actually if I can try and influence somebody else to do something really effectively, then I
Yeah.
necessarily don't have to do it as effectively as they do, for example.
I,
Um,
no, it's bang on. I know both, funnily enough, both Kevin Sidfield and Tony Smith have both said, when I've heard them speak, that they realised that to be as successful as they needed to be was about getting the best out of other people.
yeah.
It wasn't how well they played, it was how well they could help other people play. And they both said it, and it's like it just makes perfect sense.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And then I think if we then look at the business element, probably Chris, it was Ian, my business partner here, Ian Preston.
Yeah.
He's been a great coach to me in terms of thinking commercially and probably thinking outside the box. Now, if you speak
Yes.
to Ian, his ideas, his mind works at a different speed to
Yes.
anyone else I've seen.
Yep.
And if you know him, you'll know that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
the ideas he's got are fantastic. Now, he needs other people to then help implement those ideas. But when we sit down, when we sit down on a monthly basis or a quarterly board meeting, we sit there and suddenly we come out and go, oh yeah, great. And just bouncing the ideas off him and being able to think commercially and about those win-win situations. Now, I think there was one time probably where we tried to change the model, and it didn't really sit right with me or Ian, but we knew it was a good business outcome, but we didn't get it right for the brokers. And we had to hold our hands up. We didn't go through with it. We held our hands up and said, look, this isn't right for the brokers. So after we presented it to them, when you're presenting something, it doesn't feel quite right, don't you? And I think
Yep.
that takes some doing as well, listening to what the other brokers are saying and the people who work in your environment. So we didn't go ahead with it, but that was one thing where we didn't get the win-win environment right
Yep.
for everybody.
Yep.
But he's really taught me around making sure there is a win-win every time we do it. So we try and look at it from all the different points of view. We try and make sure if we put a plan in place, we've got a fail-safe or we've got some testing in place where we can test it to make sure it works before we actually execute it and things like that. So yeah, probably them two are the two that stand out to me. I won't let
Brilliant.
my dad listen to it, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah. I love that. And whether it's from the coaches or even your dad, do you have any favourite quotes or sayings that you catch yourself using a lot about business or success in general?
Yeah, I think actually, to be fair, this one is from my dad. Every time I went on the rugby pitch, and then in business since, he always said to me, "Do the little things right, and the big things will come."
Great. Yeah.
I think that was again the looking at the sum of the team is always better than the sum of one individual, no matter how good that individual is. So I've always tried to focus on those effort areas, making sure that even with the teams I run, that actually the incentives are based around effort areas because I know the outcomes will come on the back of it. Within business, we often focus at the back end and results, and we look at
Yeah.
the data and the MI, but we've got to get to that data. And to get to that data, we need people or AI doing it or whatever it might be, to the tech in place to make sure we can get there. Um, so that was a really important saying that and I sort of say that to most people as well. If you just keep focusing on doing the little things in your environment right, ultimately you will get the ultimate goal and the success that you want in the future, whether that be on an individual level, personal, or on a business level as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah, I know. We've interviewed Sean Wayne a couple of times, and
Okay.
he's very much into stoicism, and one of his phrases is how we do anything is how we do everything.
Yeah.
Which is sort of similar. And I know he talks about any of the teams he coaches when they go into a canteen, whether it's their own or the opposition's, every player is expected to leave the table tidier than when they sat down to eat. So
Yeah.
the trays go away, and the bus similarly, the coach is cleaner when they get off it than when they get on it. And it's just that it is those you start with the basics, and the more complex stuff follows much more straightforwardly.
Yeah, it's standards, isn't it? If you set yourself those
Yes.
minimum standards, then and everybody adheres to them, then ultimately, that'll work. And we work a lot actually within the group about trying to make the team and the surrounding people who are actually active within that environment set their own standards as well.
Yep.
So almost similar to the teamship piece that Clive Woodward did back in
Yep.
2003 when they won the World Cup, where the guy said, we're not just going to get to a meeting on time. We're going to get to a meeting 15 minutes early, be
Yep.
sat down. It's very similar to what you're saying there, Chris. We do a lot of that because ultimately they buy into the culture. They buy into what
Yes.
they set more so than us, designing it and putting it on the face. So all the
Yep.
values that we have within the group. So we have values of pace, which is premium, attitude, collaboration, and energy. Now
Nice.
we let the guys then design what that meant to them.
Yep. Great.
So it's not about what we think, it's about what they think, because ultimately they're part of that business and they need to
Yep.
drive that culture from within. And then we don't have to, keep enforcing it on them and telling them what the culture is because they know
100%.
what it is.
100%. For me, culture is the key to just about everything in business and sport. But in business, culture should be used to attract team clients. If there isn't a match of culture, then it's probably not going to work out over time because it's important. I believe that good. I would say good relationships come with a match of goals. We both want to achieve the same thing. That's good. That's okay. But great relationships come with a match of values. We both believe the same things are important, and if we do that, we've got long-term successful relationships tend to happen much more easily and simply, which just makes sense. And James, do you have any favourite books or podcasts that you can recommend around success, business, life in general?
Um, to be honest, most of the stuff I try and do because I'm so engrossed within the business. I try and more if I'm listening to podcasts, listen to things outside of that.
Yep.
So it's more around, the sporting elements and things like
Yep.
that because I've gained a lot of the things I've learned from, reading the books around the All Blacks, doing, their stuff and
Yep.
everything, how they set their standards and all that side of it rather than anything else. So the main podcasts I usually go to are things like the Higher Performance podcast and places like that where it's got a link to business, but that transferable skill is the most important thing in the transferable sort of effort area and things like that. So I'll go to places like that more than anything else.
There's so much to learn. I mean, obviously we're a business coaching organisation, but which a combination for me of business knowledge, skills, systems, processes about the tools to build a business. But the coaching part is very strong for us, and in fact, our director of coaching is an ex-Olympic badminton coach. So
Yeah.
he has brought even more sports coaching knowledge and skills into what we do. So people, we've got a very well known athletics coach that we work with on a regular basis. As I say, we've interviewed Sean Wayne several times. We've had Sir Clive Woodward speak at one of our events a couple of years back, which was quite cool because I mean
Mm.
coaching started in sport. It's obviously it's been around in business for a while now, but it started there, and all the best learning about coaching teams is comes from sport without a doubt.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I agree massively.
and speaking of learning, James, what would you say you learned about yourself throughout your journey so far?
Um, I suppose it changes. So I've been able, and I think that's what I've learned probably, that I've been able to, move with the times. I've been able to
Yep,
vary up what my thought process is.
yep,
So when I try to think, well, your start goal isn't necessarily your end goal. You start of your journey where you start. So when someone comes in with us as a trainee, they might, the people who come to work for us, for example, the last brokers, my head of commercial finance now in the commercial business, 18 months ago was running a gym.
right,
And it's about there's always opportunities within that select to explore those opportunities. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned about myself is don't close any books
yep,
because something might come from it, whether it is a little one-liner that you can take, whether it's a lesson, whether it's an opportunity, or even a business relationship. So I'm always open to try and meet as many people as I can to, have as many great relationships as I can, especially with the local businesses around, whether that's with a coffee shop, whether it's with a local nursery, a local gym, because ultimately they might be an introducer to us. They might refer business
yep,
to us. We might be able to set up a commercial relationship, or alternatively, it might just be we can help them as well. So if
yep,
we can actually send people their way and grab a coffee down the road when they're waiting for our guys to do a mortgage appointment with them, that's fantastic as well because I want to see the local businesses thrive and people in Yorkshire thrive where we see it so often, don't we now, Chris, where these businesses are closing down and
yeah,
it's not easy, is it out there? Especially the cash flow element is
not
not
at all.
easy. So it's tough and we want to make sure we can support them. So that's what I've probably learned, that actually keep every conversation an open one.
Yep,
Don't burn any relationships or burn any bridges, as they say, and try and take something from everything that every conversation or every situation you're in.
brilliant, brilliant. Love it, absolutely love it. And James, in actually coach yourself, our definition of a true business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without its owners. I'll put can work without its owners, but the key thing is we become dispensable, so that we how do you feel about that as a phrase for a business in general? Does that work for you? And how, and if it does work, how close would you say you are to something like that?
Yeah, I think definitely works for me, especially now as I've got older. If you were asking, sort of what advice I'd give to a younger self of me, I would say don't try and do everything yourself and don't try and please everybody.
Yep,
Um, because ultimately that's probably what I try. I was a bit of a people pleaser when I was younger, and because I liked, the personality element and the actual personal relationships, that meant that sometimes it wasn't the best commercial decision. And back ultimately, we're running a business, and actually, you
yep,
can't please everybody. You've got to make sure it works commercially, and if that can work for them as well, even better. So I probably made some bad decisions, or didn't make decisions quick enough, I would say, at that time
yep,
because I was holding on to the people and the personal relationship element. So
yes,
that would be, the advice I think I'd given myself looking back at that. Now, I think also looking at our business, the majority of our business runs now, itself pretty effectively,
brilliant.
without me, without Ian or James being too involved with it. What that
Brilliant.
actually allows us to do, Chris, and this is why I think the guys are really on board with it, is it means that we can actually focus on other niche areas. So, for example,
Yep,
the feel good hub where we go into employers to offer an employee benefits package. Now, that's not necessarily a massively explored area within financial services where we can offer wills, we can offer financial advice, we can actually help employers retain their staff. We can help them get a great culture within their business because we can support their employees to feel good financially. So we it allows us to focus on areas like that. And I've always been quite entrepreneurial. I like a new idea. It's always excited me.
yep, brilliant.
I've always wanted. I remember back in sixth form, I designed mini windmills to try and put energy into everyone's house. So each home would have a mini windmill. I mean, when I look back now, I've still kept the paper. It's not the best written, and the business plan it isn't the best business plan, but it's exciting me about thinking about new areas and what can we
Brilliant.
explore. So that allows me to do it. So I think we're pretty much there. You're never fully there, I suppose, and I'd still need to let go a little bit more, maybe,
Yep.
where I need to be because it's supporting the guys. But if you get the right people, Chris, I think you can have that effective business for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. It's just moving towards it, James. I think that the reason I think it's really important is that too many people get stuck on the hamster wheel of thinking they have to keep working in the business, and the point of starting a business for me is so that we can have something that can work without us. Otherwise we're just creating another job for ourselves. Now, nothing wrong with a job. It might be highly paid. It might be something we love, but a job is trading time for money. And I think the differential is when we can start to break that connection between how many hours we work and what the reward we get, and it's really key. And so looking forward, James, what does the future look like for you guys, and what challenges do you think you might face, if any?
I mean, there'll always be challenges, won't there? And I think a lot of the challenge will come. There's some fantastic advancements with technology, with AI, and that element, and that
Yes.
will also be quite challenging because traditionally we are a sales business. We work B2C and B2B, so it'll be about how can we utilize that technology to work with us
Yep.
rather than replace us. So the challenge will be making sure that we can do that effectively, and we're on board, at the forefront of that
Yep.
because that is where I see the challenges from now. But
Yes.
ultimately for us, it's about exploring as many opportunities as we can, Chris. We've got the core right now. The core is we can look after a number of estate agents, mortgage and protection business, and commercial finance business. Now that core is really strong. We've got the right team in place to do that. So it's about now really developing, the employee benefits, getting in the feel good hub, we
Brilliant.
call it. So that's about going into the businesses doing that, and also the feel good financial health, working with the local gyms, the local personal trainers to make sure that we're helping with their customers as well. So it's about exploring the other opportunities, I think, within within
Brilliant.
that for us, and hopefully diversifying a little bit because one having one sort of referral source, and that's what I always say to people when they ask it. Ian, I mean, maybe not to Ian and James because they all see Preston Baker, James, Ian Preston and James Baker, but I always say Preston Baker built as a castle, but then what they did is they put a moat around it. And when we were Preston Baker Financial Services, they we couldn't get over that moat because if they didn't grow, we couldn't grow
Right.
alongside them as a business. So ultimately,
Yeah.
what we need to do is put the drawbridges down to be able to build other relationships with other estate agents who maybe wouldn't, come to us as a referral partner or an introducer
Yeah.
if we were Preston Baker as such.
Understood.
So
Yeah.
that was the strategy there, and we're now sort of trying to build a sort of a city, I suppose, around the castle is what we're trying to do now.
Brilliant.
That's an analogy, I suppose, of the
Love
way I
it.
see it.
Great way of looking at it. But absolutely wonderful. And I'm keen to know what you'd say to anyone that was thinking of going to a business right now, James.
Yeah, for me, I would say make sure you start with a really robust business plan. So,
Yes.
robust business plan where you've tested some elements of it, you know that the market's there, and if you believe in it, then it gives you the opportunity to go through it. So we use within the group a lot, which Ian talks a lot about as well. I don't know if you Pete Wilkinson's 135 plan. I don't know if you've heard of that one at all.
No, I'm not totally familiar with that. No.
Yeah, so it sort of starts, it's almost like a pyramid. It starts with one overall vision, and then it
Yep.
goes down into three goals from that, and then five objectives from that. And
Cool.
then what I then do so I write that and rewrite it every week. So my five objectives change on a weekly basis.
Yep.
My three sort of goals are more, longer term, so like a month or maybe a
Yep.
quarter. And then the vision might be where do we want to finish the year, or even where do we want to be in, if, for example, someone's setting up a business with a plan to exit at some point, or what does the end look like and how do
Yeah.
you get there? But it allows you to break it down really nicely into
Brilliant.
small little bits. And I think if you do that, I make sure one of my things is I make sure every Monday morning, the first thing I do when I get up is I look at that.
Yep.
So I look at that, I rewrite my five goals for that week, and I basically set my diary up then alongside my sort of objectives for that week as such.
Nice.
So get that in place, I think, and if you've got that in place and you back your idea, believe in it, and if it feels right, it generally will have a great chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
Um, and if you can hopefully diversify your leads or your opportunities as much as you can as well in terms of revenue streams, then hopefully you'll be successful.
Brilliant. Love it. And if you started your business again, is there anything significant that you do differently, do you think?
I think maybe for us it would be trying to get some investment on board early door to allow us to grow
Yep.
outside of, for example, like I said, the castle as such that we built. So
Yes.
we grew really, we grew gradually over organically, I suppose, over a period of time,
Yes.
and we're now 12, 13 years into our journey, but it's probably only been the last 3 years where we've really taken it to the
Yeah.
next level, because we got the core right. So we got the core right, and that allowed us, but it takes a bit of time to get the core right. And you've sometimes got to reinvent the core wheel as well
Yes.
with people or with whatever, with different processes and things like that, like we talked about with COVID. So for me, if we could have had some investment probably a bit earlier, we could have potentially accelerated our growth
Yeah.
and been there quicker to where we wanted to be and maybe got to that vision a little bit quicker. That's not saying that doing it organically isn't wrong, because it does protect you as a business as well. So
I think it's just being comfortable with the fact that growth typically costs money. It
yeah,
costs cash.
yeah,
Cash is the fuel for growth. And if we don't, if we therefore limited with speedy growth with how much cash we can produce, looking for cash externally is a sensible thing. It's
yeah,
not for everybody, but it's for me. It's accepting that if I want to grow at a faster pace, maybe I need to go and find it
yeah,
from other sources. And I think it's just being open to it. I think some people are quite closed to it for fear of losing control, all bunch of stuff. All of which the fears can be mitigated, but. I think it is like how much cash do we need to fuel the growth that we want to have, and that's probably the way round to do it. I would suggest. Um, and finally, you touched it earlier, but what would be the best advice you could give an 18-year-old you if you could go back in time and do that, James?
Um, if it feels right, go with it. If it doesn't feel right, don't go ahead with it. I think your gut tells you a lot. And it's not often wrong, is it? So whether that's in business or a personal,
Yeah.
a personal life, if it feels right, go ahead with it. And it's the same we have with, with the family environment that we've got now. We've got three kids, 5 and under. So we want to make sure that, we give them the best life as
Yeah.
well. And that's ultimately all part of that. It was, to be fair, shall we say the third was a surprise, because having
Nice.
3 under 5 probably wasn't in that long-term vision. But again, if it feels right, it feels right, and you
Brilliant.
go with it, and you wouldn't ever change that decision. So you've got to be comfortable, I think, with setbacks. You've got to be comfortable accepting that not everything's going to work. And if you are comfortable with that, you'll move on to the next thing and you'll be able to find another route to be able to get to your vision, I suppose.
Yeah, no, perfect. It's funny. A couple of things. It sounded like you were working on your own 135 plan there when you described what you just said. But
Yeah.
it's also a great. It's also great. Also great. There's a great phrase in the military which is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. I.e.,
Yeah.
it's important to have plans, absolutely, and the value of a plan is in the planning because we also think about what could go wrong and how will we change if it does. So and certainly in business, whatever we choose to want our plan to look like, we have to accept it might change. And an obvious thing to say, as we were talking before we started, any 12-month plan that was written in January of 2020 will have changed pretty quickly in March or February, March of 2020 when COVID hit, and so it's important to understand that. James, it's been fascinating to talk to you, and I congratulate you on everything you've achieved so far. And for anyone that was interested in getting in touch with you or Feel Good Financial, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so go to the website feelgoodfinancial.co.uk, or alternatively, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so search for me on LinkedIn. We again the Instagram, and we've got Instagram for the business and everything as well. They can get in touch with. So
Brilliant.
numerous ways these days that
Yeah,
it's quite easy to find somebody, isn't it? Which is a great thing because it means you can talk to the right people
yeah.
and you can ultimately meet decision makers quicker as well. So.
Yes, and attract them in the right way, the right people in the right way. Because I think it's important that businesses find the people that they serve best and make those connections. Because going for everybody, we just end up with a random distribution. Some great, some not so great, some crap, and it's just like let's just work with the great people.
Yeah, and I think
All
that's what
right.
we've really done that, Chris, in terms of we're trying to now source, it's about getting introducers for us, so working with a business on a B2B level, because actually they can provide us far more customers and going B2C. So a
Yeah.
lot of mortgage brokers probably have a challenge that they go B2C and they try and get first time buyers, for example, as
Yeah.
because they know that's a great customer base. But ultimately, if they went for somebody who might have 20 first time buyers, a local football club who they could support and go in and have a chat with all the players, then actually that might give them 20 opportunities rather than one. So
Yes.
yeah, I certainly agree with that.
Makes perfect sense. Well, James, it'd be great to swing by another 6 to 12 months and just see the next stages of your growth and what you've learned through those. But for now, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Chris. It's been fun.
Brilliant. Thank you.